in the shadowed cradle of ancient Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers carve their eternal paths through the dust of forgotten kings, a thunderous roar echoes across the plains, not of lions or tempests, but of hooves pounding like the heartbeat of destiny itself. Imagine it, a vast horde of riders, their banners snapping in the wind like serpents uncoiling from the earth, sweeping eastward from the rugged highlands of Persia toward the sun-baked walls of mighty Babylon. It is 539 BC, and the world as it knows itself is shattering. The unchallenged empire of the Chaldeans, with its hanging gardens defying gravity and its ziggurats piercing the heavens, trembles under the onslaught of an unlikely conqueror, a man not born to thrones of gold, but to the wild winds of nomadic exile. Cyrus the Great, his eyes fierce as the Zoroastrian flames he reveres, stands at the vanguard, not with a sword thirsting for blood, but with a decree that will rewrite the annals of humanity. Freedom for the oppressed, tolerance for the faiths of the vanquished, and a vision of unity that spans continents. As the gates of Babylon swing open not in defeat but in awestruck surrender, a whisper spreads like wildfire through the markets and temples. The world has a new master. Not Rome with its legions yet to march, not Greece dreaming of philosophers in olive groves, but Persia, the eagle of the East, whose wings will soon eclipse the known world. This is the saga of the Achaemenid Empire, the forgotten colossus that conquered not just lands, but souls, forging an empire so vast it dwarfed the dreams of gods. And yet, in the relentless march of history, it faded into the mists, eclipsed by the togas and triumphs of later ages. Join us now as we unearth the bones of this behemoth, dust away the sands of 2 millennia, and reveal how a single man's audacity birthed a realm that redefined conquest, governance, and the very essence of power. For in the story of Persia lies the truth that empires are not built on stone alone, but on the fragile, unbreakable threads of human ambition, and in its fall, a warning etched in gold. Even the mightiest flame can flicker out. From the arid plateaus of modern-day Iran, where eagles still soar over jagged peaks that pierce the endless blue, the tale begins not with fanfare or prophecy, but with the raw grit of survival. The Persians, a hardy Indo-Iranian tribe, had long roamed these unforgiving lands as vassals to the Medes, their cousins in blood if not in fortune, herding sheep and whispering tales of ancient heroes around campfires that spat sparks into the starlit void. Their world was one of tribal feuds and fleeting alliances, where the wheel of fortune turned as unpredictably as the desert storms that could bury a village overnight. Into this tapestry of hardship steps Achaemenes, the eponymous ancestor whose name would one day cloak an empire in legend. Though his life remains a silhouette against the dawn, a chieftain whose descendants would claim divine favor from Ahura Mazda, the supreme deity of Zoroastrian light, battling the chaos of Angra-Mainyu in an eternal cosmic duel. But it is Cyrus II, born around 600 BC to Cambyses I, who ignites the spark. Legend swirls around his birth like the mists of the Zagros Mountains. The Greek historian Herodotus, ever the storyteller with a penchant for the dramatic, recounts how the Median king Astyages dreamed of his grandson devouring the world, prompting a desperate plot to expose the infant Cyrus on a hillside for wolves to claim. Miraculously, or divinely as the faithful would insist, the child survives, suckled by a shepherd's wife, his cries echoing like a call to arms. Raised in anonymity, Cyrus grows into a youth of unyielding resolve, his frame wiry from mountain treks, his mind sharpened by the oral epics of Aryan warriors who once thundered across the steppes. By his 20s, whispers of unrest stir in the Median court. Astyages, grown tyrannical and isolated in his palace of lapis lazuli at Ecbatana, demands tribute that chafes like salt in a wound. Cyrus, now king of tiny Anshan, a Persian backwater, rallies his kinsmen not with promises of glory, but with a vision of equity, a rare elixir in an age of iron-fisted rule. In 553 BC, the revolt erupts. Persian archers, their bows curved like the crescent moon, loose arrows that darken the sky over Median strongholds. Battle after battle, Cyrus presses northward, his strategies a blend of cunning feints and relentless pursuit, until Astyages himself is captured, his crown traded for chains. The Medes, far from sullen in defeat, integrate seamlessly, their cavalry bolstering Persian ranks. For Cyrus rules not as a vengeful usurper, but as a liberator who honors the old bonds. Ecbatana becomes his summer retreat, its cool slopes a counterpoint to the sweltering Persian plains, and from its halls he gazes westward, where the glittering prize of Babylon beckons like a mirage made manifest. The march on Babylon is no blunt hammer of war, but a scalpel of subtlety laced with the perfume of diplomacy. Cyrus, ever the tactician, sends emissaries ahead, their satchels heavy with gold, and their tongues honeyed with appeals to the Babylonian masses. Weary under Nabonidus's eccentric rule, the king who neglects his city for pilgrimages to distant oases, leaving his son Belshazzar to feast amid omens of doom, as Persian forces fan out along the Euphrates, diverting its waters to expose fords under the cover of a lunar eclipse. Herodotus claims the gods themselves signaled approval. The city awakens to the clamor of liberation, not invasion. The Cyrus cylinder, that clay relic unearthed in the 19th century and now housed in the British Museum, bears his own words etched in Akkadian cuneiform. I am Cyrus, king of the world, great king, legitimate king, king of Babylon, king of Sumer and Akkad, king of the four rims of the earth. No bombast of destruction here. Instead, a charter of human rights avant la lettre, proclaiming the return of exiled gods to their shrines, the restoration of temples razed by hubris, and the gentle yoke of Persian oversight. Jews, long captives since Nebuchadnezzar's siege of Jerusalem, stream homeward under Ezra's guidance, their psalms forever grateful. Egyptian priests, sensing opportunity, hail Cyrus as the anointed one foretold by Isaiah. From the Indus Valley's monsoon-drenched deltas to the Ionian shores where Greek tyrants plot in marble colonnades, envoys carry his edict. Worship as you will, pay tribute as you prosper, and bend the knee to the king who tames chaos with order. By 530 BC, the Achaemenid realm stretches 3,000 miles east to west, a mosaic of satrapies, provinces governed by trusted nobles, each a microcosm of local custom under imperial thread. The royal road, that engineering marvel snaking 1,600 miles from Sardis to Susa, bristles with relay stations where couriers on horseback swap fresh mounts, hurtling messages at 500 miles in 7 days, a pony express predating Rome's by centuries. Caravans grown under silks from China, spices from India, lapis from Afghanistan, all funneled to Persepolis. The ceremonial heart rising from limestone cliffs like a petrified forest of columns topped with double-headed bulls, guardians against the abyss. Yet conquest alone does not forge an empire. It is the alchemy of administration that transmutes brute force into enduring legacy. Darius the Fair, Cyrus's son-in-law and successor after a brief interregnum of fratricidal shadows, Cambyses' mad death in Egypt and a pretender's brief reign, ascends in 522 BC, his grip iron yet enlightened. A usurper by some accounts, he quells rebellions with the swift blade of legitimacy, carving his exploits on the Behistun inscription, that towering rock relief in Iran's Kermanshah province, where he stands colossal, bow in hand, flanked by chained foes, while multilingual texts proclaim his divine mandate in Old Persian, Elamite, Babylonian, and Aramaic, the empire's lingua franca, a bridge of Babel uniting disparate tongues. Darius's genius lies in structure. 20 satrapies, each with treasuries audited by royal spies, the eyes and ears of the king, who ride incognito to sniff out corruption like hounds on a scent. Taxes are not arbitrary extortions, but calibrated levies, often in kind, wheat from Lydia's fields, ivory from Nubia's herds, funneled to vast granaries that avert famine's specter. The Qanat system, those subterranean aqueducts snaking miles through parched earth, brings life to barren expanses, irrigating orchards of pomegranate and date that feed armies and civilians alike. Zoroastrianism infuses the ethos without iron dogma. Fire temples dot the landscape, their eternal flames symbolizing purity. Yet Darius tolerates Babylonian Marduk, Greek Zeus, Egyptian Amun, his palace at Susa, a pantheon in brick and tile, where artisans from Ionia carve friezes of immortals, and Indian goldsmiths inlay thrones with lapis veins of blue deeper than the midnight sea. Immortals, that elite guard of 10,000 spearmen with golden pomegranates on their spear butts, stand eternal vigil, their ranks replenished invisibly, inspiring Aeschylus's awe in the Persian wars to come. But Darius dreams beyond defense. His fleets, crewed by Phoenician mariners whose cedar ships slice the Mediterranean like knives through silk, probe the edges of the world, circumnavigating Africa in a voyage that Herodotus marvels at. returning with tales of dog-headed men and fiery-eyed satyrs. As the sun climbs higher in the imperial firmament, shadows lengthen on the western horizon, where the fractious city-states of Greece stir like hornets in a disturbed nest. The Ionian Revolt of 499 BC ignites the fuse. Greek colonists in Asia Minor, chafing under Persian satraps' taxes, rise with Athenian aid, torching Sardis in a blaze that singes the king's pride. Darius, from his throne in Persepolis, dispatches envoys demanding earth and water, symbols of submission, from every Greek isle and mainland polis. Most yield, but Athens and Sparta hurl the emissaries into pits and wells, a defiance that echoes through eternity. The response is thunderous. In 490 BC, the first Persian invasion crashes upon Marathon's plain. 25,000 immortals and marines under Datis and Artaphernes, facing 10,000 hoplites led by Miltiades. The battle unfolds in a symphony of dust and bronze. Persian archers loose clouds of arrows that blot the sun, but Greek phalanxes, shields locked like a living wall, charge with a roar that shatters the line. Pheidippides, the herald whose 26-mile sprint to Sparta begs aid, and whose exhaustion after announcing victory births the modern marathon, embodies the grit. Against odds, the Greeks prevail, 6,400 Persians slain to 192 Athenians, the invaders fleeing to their ships in disarray. Darius vows revenge, but death claims him in 486 BC, leaving the mantle to Xerxes I, his son, a colossus of a man whose palace murals depict him spearing beasts twice his size. Xerxes, torn between caution and conquest, amasses an armada, 200 triremes from Tyre to Byzantium, their oars dipping in unison like the pulse of Leviathan. Ferrying an army, Herodotus inflates to 2.6 million souls. Hyperbole, surely, but even halved, a tide to drown nations. Bridges of boats lash the Hellespont after a storm's insolence earns divine lashings. Xerxes orders the sea whipped, a hubris that whispers of coming nemesis. Through Thrace and Macedonia, bowing kings strew gold in his path. Thessaly opens gates, but the pass of Thermopylae becomes legend in 480 BC there. Leonidas and his 300 Spartans with 7,000 allies hold the narrow defile against the Persian millions, their spears a porcupine of defiance. For 3 days, the immortals hurl themselves against the Spartan wall, bodies piling like cordwood, until a traitor's path betrays the rear. Ephialtes, forever cursed in Greek lore. "Mullen Lab," Leonidas snarls, "come and take them!" as the last stand paints the rocks red, buying time for Greece to rally. The fleet meets Cataclysm at Salamis, where Themistocles lures the armada into Artemision's straits. Ramhorns splintering hulls in a maelstrom of foam and screams. Persian captains drowning in their gilded armor while triremes founder. Aeschylus, aboard a Greek vessel, pens lines that immortalize the clash. The sons of Hellas, for the freedom of Greece, stood fast. Xerxes, watching from Mount Agelaeus, tears his robes in fury, fleeing with his household gods while Mardonius lingers to press the fight. Plataea in 479 BC seals the doom. Pausanias's Greeks, 40,000 strong, shatter the Persian center, immortals fleeing as common levies, their golden gear abandoned in the mud. Mycale's beaches echo the rout at sea, Ionian Greeks rising anew. The Achaemenids, bloodied but unbowed, retreat to consolidate, their western ambitions checked, yet the empire endures, a wounded lion nursing claws for another leap. Xerxes returns to Susa, where intrigue festers like an untended wound. Eunuchs whisper, queen scheme. And in 465 BC, Artabanus's dagger ends his reign in a bedchamber coup, passing the diadem to Artaxerxes I, who navigates the labyrinth of succession with a statesman's poise. Under Artaxerxes, the empire pivots inward, mending fractures with the mortar of magnanimity. Rebellions in Egypt, stirred by Inaros the Libyan, are quelled not by annihilation, but by concessions. Local pharaohs reinstated as satraps, their pyramids spared the desecrator's torch. The Greek wars simmer into a cold peace, Athens' Delian League a thorn, but Persian gold sows discord among the Helots, funding Peloponnesian strife that bleeds the Hellenes dry. The king's highway hums with commerce. Bactrian camels laden with lapis trudge beside Lydian merchants hawking electrum coins. The derrick, Darius's pure gold stater stamped with an archer king, clinking in pouches from Taxila to Carthage. Persepolis swells into splendor, Its Apadana audience hall, a forest of cedar columns 60 feet tall, imported from Lebanon on rollers drawn by elephants, their trunks trumpeting through cedar groves felled for glory, reliefs procession endlessly. Tribute bearers from every satrapy, Median horsemen with quivers of arrows, Armenian smiths with iron ingots, Scythian nomads offering horses sleek as shadows, filing before the throne dais where the king, enthroned in audience, receives obeisance with a hand stayed in benevolence. Zoroastrian rites sanctify the pomp, Magi in white robes chant the Gathas, invoking Ahura Mazda's wisdom, while Haoma presses yield the sacred elixir, a brew of ephedra and milk that stirs visions of the divine. Women, far from chattel, wield influence. Atassa, Cyrus's daughter and Xerxes' mother, advises from veils of intrigue. Parysatis, Artaxerxes' queen, poisons rivals with diamond-dipped thorns, her ambition a blade honed sharper than any spear. The empire's underbelly teems with innovation, the first true postal system, with milestones marking the royal road, veterinary techs preserving horse breeds for chariot warfare, and the Connaught's genius, channeling mountain snowmelt to bloom oases in the Dasht de Kavir's desolation, where date palms now cluster like verdant mirages. Yet the seeds of erosion, sown in hubris and distance, take root in the fertile soil of complacency. As Artaxerxes II ascends in 404 BC, the satrapies chafe under the weight of endless tribute, their granaries echoing with the ghosts of famines past. Egypt slips the leash in 343 BC under Nectanebo II, its priests reclaiming Thebes' temples from Persian overseers, a humiliation that prompts Artaxerxes III's reconquest. Poison gas from burning sulfur hurled into tunnels, a grim harbinger of chemical shadows. The Greek world, forged in the anvil of Persian defeat, turns mercenary. Xenophon's 10,000. Ionian adventurers and Cyrus the Younger's doomed bid for the throne in 401 BC march 500 miles home through Kurdish wilds, their cry, Thalata, Thalata, the sea, a paean to survival that inspires Alexander's tutors. Satraps like Tissaphernes play Athens and Sparta like lyres, their gold fueling the Peloponnesian War's coda, but the strings snap under the strain. Zoroastrian orthodoxy hardens, Magi purging devas, false gods, from texts, alienating polytheistic fringes where Greek cults blend with Mithric bull slays. The empire's vastness, once its strength, becomes its Achilles' heel. Couriers falter on roads patrolled by brigands. Spies report whispers drowned in the babble of 70 tongues. Revolt ripples from Cappadocia to Hyrcania, each quashed with Pyrrhic blood, draining the immortals' ranks. Artaxerxes III's paranoia births purges, eunuchs like Bagoas rising to wield the knife that felled the king himself in 338 BC, installing puppet arses before claiming the throne in a farce of regicide. Darius III, the last scion of Achaemenid blood, inherits a realm riddled with termites, his nobles more loyal to coin than crown, as a new storm gathers in Macedon. From the rugged hills of Pella, where tutors Aristotle instilled dreams of Homeric glory in a youth of restless fire, Alexander III eyes the East not as foe, but as canvas for conquest. At 20, he ascends in 336 BC, his father Philip slain by Pausanias's blade, perhaps Persian gold's shadow, though whispers vary, and with Olympias's fierce maternity fueling his vein. He crushes Theban rebels, razing the city save Pindar's house, a nod to poetry amid carnage. The Corinthian League bows, proclaiming him hegemon against the barbarian peril, and in 334 BC, 40,000 cross the Hellespont, heart-pounding with the ghosts of Troy. Granicus River runs red with Persian satrap blood. Satraps like Arsites fleeing as Macedonian phalanges, 18-foot sarissas bristling like porcupine quills, shatter cavalry charges. Sardis yields without a fight, its Acropolis a gift to the conqueror who spares its temples, echoing Cyrus's grace in reverse. Issus in 333 BC traps Darius III's host in a coastal defile, 100,000 Persians against 47,000 Greeks, but terrain betrays the many. Alexander, golden hair streaming, leads the charge, his hypaspists, elite shield-bearers, carving to the royal tent where Darius flees, abandoning kin. Statera, his queen, and the harem fall prize to the victor, who treats them with chivalric restraint, a calculated mercy to fracture loyalties. Tyre's siege follows. A 7-month ordeal. Moles of rubble bridge the harbor, towers toppled by rams. The city stormed in a fury of rape and slaughter, 2,000 crucified along the shore, a biblical echo of wrath. Gaza falls. Egypt hails Alexander as liberator, crowning him pharaoh at Memphis, where Apis bulls low approval, and he founds Alexandria, a beacon whose lighthouse will guide sailors for a millennium. The Gordian knot yields to his sword in Phrygia, legend or expedience, and into Persia he strides, Gaugamela in 331 BC, the apocalypse. Arbella's plain, leveled by Darius's engineers, hosts 250,000 Persians. Scythed chariots gleaming, Indian elephants trumpeting, immortals in parade splendor. Alexander's 47,000, outnumbered, faints with cavalry on the wings, drawing Bessus's Bactrians aside while the phalanx advances inexorably. Cyrus felling Bactrian camels in sprays of blood. Darius, in his scythed chariot, watches his center crumple, fleeing once more as Alexander seizes the royal baggage. Tables laden with gold, concubines veiled in silk. Susa and Persepolis surrender, the latter's palaces torched in a night of revelry. Thais, the courtesan's torch, some say, avenging Persian Athens, or Alexander's calculated signal to the east. The old order burns. The treasury yields 180,000 talents, a fortune to fund further dreams, but hubris creeps. Proskynesis, the Persian bow to superiors, offends Macedonian pride, sparking mutinies quelled by the king's tears. Into the Hindu Kush he presses, Bactria subdued in guerrilla shadows, Roxana the Sogdian bride sealing alliances in a tent of furs. The Gedrosian desert claims thousands in 325 BC, a march of thirst where monsoon floods ironically drown the stragglers, Alexander emerging gaunt but unbroken. The Indus yields to Porus at Hydaspes, elephants captured for his own menagerie, but the army, homesick, halts at the Hyphasis, murmuring of oceans beyond which no man returns. Backtracking, he sails the Indus, founding cities like Nicaea at victory sites. Before Babylon claims him in 323 BC, fever or poison, his body embalmed in honey, empire fracturing among Diadochi like shards of a broken vase. In the wake of Alexander's starburst, the Achaemenid flame gutters, but its embers illuminate the void. Seleucus Nicator carves the eastern lion's share, his heirs blending Greek and Persian in Bactrian satrapies where Parthian horsemen sharpen arrows against the wind. The Seleucids, from Antioch's marble halls, ape Persian pomp, basileus titles, diadems of white. Yet the East remembers Cyrus's tolerance, Zoroastrian fires flickering in underground mihrabs as Buddhism drifts from the Indus. Ptolemies in Egypt hoard Persepolis' spoils, their library at Alexandria swallowing Avestan scrolls translated into coin. But the true heir is Parthia, the Arsacid house rising from nomadic ashes. Their cataphracts, mailed knights on armored destriers, repelling Roman eagles at Carrhae in 53 BC. Crassus's had a grisly goblet for a Rhodes's revels. Sassanids later reclaimed the mantle in 224 AD. Ardashir won toppling Parthian weakness, restoring fire altars and imperial roads, warring with Rome in a millennium of seesaw. Yet the Achaemenid soul endures in the veins of Iran, in the Nowruz festivals heralding spring with Haoma feasts, in the Shahname's epic verses where Rostam wrestles demons akin to Angra Mainyu. Their legacy whispers in the UN's charter, echoing Cyrus's cylinder, in the Silk Road's echoes where camel bells toll across the Taklamakan, in the resilience of peoples who, under one king's gaze, learned that empire is not subjugation, but the art of weaving disparate threads into a tapestry vast as the horizon. As the credits would roll on this epic reel, one cannot escape the poignant irony. Rome, that upstart republic across the wine-dark Aegean, would rise on Persian laurels, adopting satrapal governance in provinces, aqueducts inspired by qanats, even the cataphract charge refined from Parthian models, yet claim the mantle of world's conqueror. Augustus's legions, marching to the Euphrates, halt at memories of Crassus's folly, content with borders echoing Achaemenid extents. The forgotten empire, then, is no mere prelude. It is the overture whose chords resonate through Caesar's forums and Constantine's basilicas, a testament that true conquest lies not in miles claimed, but in minds liberated. In the ruins of Pasargadae, where Cyrus's tomb stands stark, a stone gable on a stepped plinth, guarded by maidens in eternal vigil, The wind carries a final admonition. Glory is fleeting, but the human spirit, forged in such fires, endures eternal. And so, as the camera pans over the eternal plains, the narrator's voice fades, leaving you, the viewer, to ponder. What forgotten flames flicker still in your own history, waiting to be rekindled? The wind that howls across the high plateau of Pasargadae carries more than dust. It carries the scent of cedar smoke from a funeral pyre that burned 2.5 millennia ago, the last breath of a king who never believed in endings. Cyrus lies beneath a simple stone chamber, 6 steps rising to a gabled roof, no larger than a shepherd's hut, yet every inch of it screams defiance against oblivion. The inscription, carved in 3 languages, Old Persian, Elamite, Akkadian, dares the passerby, "O man, whoever you are and wherever you come from, for I know you will come. I am Cyrus, who won the Persians their empire. Do not therefore begrudge me this bit of earth that covers my bones." No gold, no lapis, no towering ziggurat, just a man and his truth. And yet, from this modest mound, an empire exploded outward like a supernova, swallowing kingdoms the way a desert drinks rain, leaving behind a silence so complete that even the Greeks, who hated everything Persian, could not erase it. They tried. Herodotus painted them as effeminate despots in silk robes. Aeschylus turned their defeat into tragedy. Xenophon marched through their heartland and called it a wilderness. But the stones remember. The qanats still flow. The royal road, though cracked and buried under asphalt in places, still carries the echo of hoofbeats from Sardis to Susa. And in the bazaars of modern Shiraz, old men still bargain in the same cadence their ancestors used when they sold lapis to Ionian merchants who thought they were buying the sky. Stand with me now on the terrace of Persepolis at dawn. The sun, a molten coin rising over the Kue Ramat, strikes the fluted columns of the Apadana and ignites the gold leaf that once sheathed their capitals. 106 pillars, each taller than a cedar of Lebanon, stand in perfect ranks like an army of stone immortals. Between them the reliefs march in endless procession. 23 delegations, each distinct, each proud. Look, there, the Medes in their rounded caps, leading stallions with manes braided like rope. The Lydians with their double axes slung across shoulders. The Indians in dhotis, offering ivory tusks longer than a man is tall. The Ethiopians with okapi skins and gold rings piercing their lips. The Scythians, wild-eyed, dragging a live panther on a chain of silver. They are not slaves. They are not caricatures. They are the empire's heartbeat, pumping tribute and talent into the veins of a realm that stretched from the Jaxartes to the Nile. And at the head of the grand staircase, the king sits enthroned, no face, just a silhouette against the rising sun. Because to the Achaemenids, the king was not a man but an idea. The king of kings, the axis around which the world turned. His beard is curled in perfect spirals, his robe folds like frozen waves, and in his right hand he holds not a sword but a lotus blossom, symbol of creation, of life renewed. This is not propaganda. This is theology carved in limestone. Walk the length of the terrace and feel the ground vibrate faintly beneath your sandals. It is not an earthquake. It is the memory of 10,000 immortals drilling at dawn, their spear butts striking the pavement in perfect unison, the sound rolling across the plain like distant thunder. They wore scale armor of bronze and iron, each scale no larger than a thumbnail, overlapping like the feathers of a fishhawk. Their shields were wicker covered in gold leaf, light enough to dance with, strong enough to turn an arrow. And on their heads, tiaras of soft felt that could be pulled down like a hood when the arrows came thick as locusts. They were the empire's spine, but they were also its nervous system, rotated every season from the provinces so that no satrap could hoard loyalty. Paid in gold derricks that bore the king's image running with bow drawn, a reminder that the king was always watching, always hunting. When they marched, the ground shook. When they stood still, the silence was louder. Descend now into the city that never was. Persepolis was not a city. It was a stage, a ritual space where the empire performed itself twice a year, at Nowruz, the spring equinox, and at Mergen, the autumn harvest. For 6 weeks, the plain became a sea of tents. Silk pavilions from Bactria, goat hair from Arabia, felt yurts from the Saka plains. Ambassadors arrived with elephants and ostriches, with snow leopards in cages and falcons hooded in pearl-embroidered leather. The king received them in the hall of 100 columns, seated on a throne of ebony and ivory, his feet on a footstool of solid gold. Behind him, a frieze of lions devouring bulls, life and death in eternal cycle. Before him, the gifts were piled. 300 white horses from Nisa, 1,000 camels from Gadrosia, 100 talents of frankincense from Hadramaut. And when the sun reached its zenith, the king rose, and the entire assembly, 30,000 souls, prostrated themselves, foreheads to the dust, in a wave of humanity that rippled from the throne to the edge of the world. This was not worship of a man. This was acknowledgement of order, of the cosmic hierarchy that kept chaos at bay. But order is fragile, and distance is a slow poison. From the palace at Susa, 500 miles to the west, the king's scribes tallied the empire in ledgers of clay and parchment. Each satrapy had its quota: 1,000 talents of silver from Babylon, 360 from Egypt, 170 from Lydia. The numbers never lied, but men did. A satrap in distant Bactria could skim a tenth of the gold dust panned from the Oxus, and no one in Susa would know for a year. A garrison commander in Sardis could sell Persian horses to Greek merchants and pocket the derricks. The empire was a body with too many limbs, and the blood took too long to circulate. The royal road helped: 1,677 miles of packed earth, 111 post stations, a fresh horse every 15 miles. But even the fastest courier took 7 days to reach the coast. 7 days for a rebellion to fester. 7 days for a satrap to crown himself king. Darius knew this. That is why he created the Angarian, the mounted relay that could carry a clay tablet sealed with the king's lion signet from one end of the empire to the other in the time it took a man to starve. The riders wore bells on their wrists so that the next station could hear them coming through the night. They rode without sleep, without food, without mercy. When one horse faltered, another was waiting. When one rider collapsed, another swung into the saddle. The message was everything. The man was nothing, and the messages were not always of war. Sometimes they carried poetry. A satrap in Armenia sends word that the snows have come early and the grape harvest will be light. A priest in Babylon reports that the planet Marduk has appeared in the house of the scorpion, an omen. A Greek engineer in Halicarnassus begs leave to build a bridge of boats across the Hellespont. The king reads them all, dictates replies in the cool of the evening, his voice echoing through the hypostyle hall, where cedar beams from Lebanon still smell of resin after 2,500 years. He signs with a cylinder seal of chalcedony, rolling it across wet clay so that the lion and the king and the winged sun disk appear in perfect negative. Then the tablet is baked, wrapped in linen, sealed again with bitumen, and entrusted to the rider who will not sleep until he reaches the sea. But even the best system has cracks, and in the cracks grow weeds. In 522 BC, while Darius was still consolidating power, a magus named Gaumata seized the throne, claiming to be Bardia, the brother Cambyses had murdered in Egypt. For 7 months he ruled from the palace at Sikayovati, issuing decrees in Bardia's name, marrying the royal princesses, redistributing land to the peasantry. The empire teetered. Then Darius struck. 7 nobles, 7 daggers, 7 corpses in the throne room. The Bayestun inscription tells the story in 3 languages, high on a cliff where the sun strikes first and last. Darius stands triumphant, foot on Gaumata's neck, while 9 rebel kings hang in chains behind him. The message is clear. The empire is not a debate. It is a verdict, yet verdicts require executioners, and executioners grow ambitious. In 465 BC, Artabanus, captain of the guard, murdered Xerxes in his bed with a dagger dipped in poison. The king's blood soaked the linen sheets embroidered with golden pomegranates. His son Artaxerxes, I avenged him, but the damage was done. The court became a nest of vipers. Queens poisoned rivals with belladonna in their wine. Eunuchs whispered in the harem, trading secrets for power. The king's own mother, Amestris, had 50 nobles beheaded on her birthday, their heads displayed on spikes along the royal road, as a reminder that mercy was a luxury the empire could not afford. And still the satraps grew fat. In Egypt, Inaros the Libyan led a revolt that lasted 6 years, burning Persian ships in the Nile Delta, crucifying Persian officers on the walls of Memphis. Athens sent 200 triremes to help, their prows painted with owl eyes. The Persians drowned them in the marshes, but the taste of rebellion lingered like blood in the mouth. Meanwhile, in the east, the empire's frontiers frayed like an old carpet. The Saka tribes beyond the Xerxes raided the silk caravans, their arrows tipped with bone because iron was scarce. The Massagetæ, led by Queen Tamiris, still told the story of how they had defeated Cyrus, filling a wineskin with his blood and drinking it in victory. The Indians beyond the Hindu Kush paid tribute in gold dust and wore elephants, but their loyalty was to their own rajas, not to a king they had never seen. And in the West, the Greeks, those quarrelsome, wine-drinking, poetry-spouting Greeks, were learning to fight as one. The victory at Marathon had been a fluke, they said. A lucky charge on a narrow plain. But Salamis was no fluke. Thermopylae was no fluke. Plataea was no fluke. The Persians had come with a forest of ships and a desert of men, and they had left with nothing but stories of Greek spears and Greek fire. Xerxes watched it all from a golden throne on the slopes of Mount Aigaleos, his face a mask of rage and grief. When the last Persian ship burned, he tore his robes and ordered the Hellespont whipped again. 300 lashes for the sea that had betrayed him. Then he fled east, leaving Mardonius to die at Plataea, his body trampled by Greek sandals until even the dogs would not touch it. The empire did not fall that day. It bled, it limped, it retreated behind the Taurus mountains and licked its wounds. But the wound never closed. Every year the Greeks sailed farther east. Every year the satraps paid more to keep them at bay. Every year the king's treasury grew thinner, the derricks lighter, the gold washed with silver until even the merchants noticed. And then came Alexander. He crossed the Hellespont with 40,000 men and a dream larger than the world. At Granicus, he charged across a river in flood, his white plume a banner against the sky. At Issus, he trapped Darius in a valley and broke his center like a potter's wheel. At Gaugamela, he faced the last great Persian army, scythed chariots, war elephants, immortals in golden scale, and turned their numbers against them, opening a gap where the phalanx poured through like water through a cracked dam. Darius fled again, his chariot wheels spinning in the dust, his diadem lost in the chaos. Alexander found it later, trampled into the mud, and placed it on his own head, not as a trophy, but as a promise. He would not stop at the Euphrates. He would not stop at the Indus. He would go until the world ended, or he did. Persepolis burned for 3 days. The cedar beams cracked like thunder. The gold leaf melted and ran in rivers down the marble steps. The reliefs blackened, the faces of the tribute bearers erased by smoke. Some say it was revenge for Athens. Some say it was a drunken accident. Some say it was a signal to the east. The old order is dead. When the flames died, Alexander stood in the ashes and wept. Not for the city, but for the fact that there were no more worlds to conquer. He was 25 years old. The empire did not die with Persepolis. It died in pieces. Bessus betrayed Darius and flayed him alive in a cage of iron. Alexander hunted him down and had him crucified between 2 trees. The satraps surrendered one by one, trading loyalty for their lives. The treasury at Susa yielded 50,000 talents of silver, enough to pay an army for a decade. The harem at Babylon became Alexander's court, the Persian princesses his wives, their children the future of a world that would never be born. He adopted Persian dress, Persian customs, Persian proskynesis, and his Macedonian veterans hated him for it. At Opus they mutinied, and he wept again, this time for the men who could not understand that the world had changed. He died in Babylon, 32 years old, his body swollen with fever or poison, his last words a whisper, "To the strongest." The empire he left behind fractured like glass. Ptolemy took Egypt, Seleucus took Asia, Antigonus took Greece. The wars of the Diadochi lasted 50 years, and when the dust settled, the Achaemenid world was gone. The fire temples were dark. The Qanats silted up. The royal road became a caravan track for silk and spices. The derricks were melted down and restruck with the faces of new kings. And in the ruins of Pasargadae, the tomb of Cyrus stood alone, its inscription fading under the sun, its message clearer with every passing century. But empires do not vanish. They transform. The Parthians rose from the ashes of Seleucia, their cataphracts clad in mail that glittered like fish scales, their arrows singing the same song the immortals had sung at Marathon. The Sassanids built Ctesiphon with bricks fired in the same kilns that had glazed Persepolis. The Safavids painted Isfahan with the same lapis that had once adorned Darius's throne. And in the 20th century, when Reza Shah Pahlavi sought a name for his new nation-state, he reached back 2,500 years and chose Iran, land of the Aryans, land of Cyrus, land of the forgotten empire that had conquered the world before Rome was even a village. Today, the columns of Persepolis still stand, blackened but unbowed. The tomb of Cyrus still waits for the traveler who will come, as he knew we would. The wind still carries the scent of cedar smoke and the echo of hoofbeats. And in the silence between the stones, you can hear it, the heartbeat of an empire that refused to die. It simply changed its name. It became the idea of Persia, the idea of tolerance, the idea that a single man with a single vision could hold the world in the palm of his hand and choose not to crush it. This is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of the memory. The satrapy of Bactria wakes before the sun. In the citadel of Bactra, high on its mud-brick acropolis, the fire priest climbs the 100 steps to the altar terrace with a bronze bowl of glowing embers cradled against his white linen robe. The coals hiss when he feeds them cedar shavings and frankincense. The flame leaps, pale gold against the indigo sky, and the first prayer of the day rises with the smoke. Asham vohu vahishtem asti. Righteousness is the best good. The words are older than the walls, older than the river Oxus that coils below like a sleeping serpent. Down in the lower town, the call echoes from a dozen smaller fire holders, on rooftops and courtyards, inside the barracks where the garrison's horses stamp and blow steam into the frost. By the time the sun clears the Hindu Kush, every hearth in the satrapy has been kindled from the sacred flame, and the empire's day has begun. Satrap Darius, 36 winters, beard oiled with spikenard, eyes the color of glacier melt, stands on his balcony overlooking the bazaar. He wears the Persian riding coat of scarlet leather, the candies with empty sleeves draped across his shoulders like wings, and on his head the bashlik tied beneath the chin with a golden cord. A Greek secretary, Nicias of Miletus, waits with wax tablets. An Indian groom holds the satrap's stallion, a Nicaean black with a white star. A Sogdian steward carries the morning dispatches sealed in clay bullae. Darius breaks the first seal with his thumbnail. The tablet inside is in Aramaic, the empire's glue. From the treasurer at Maracanda, 2,300 sheep, 180 horses, 14 talents of lapis received. The caravan from the stone tower reports snow on the Pamir passes. He nods, dictates a reply, moves to the next. The empire is a machine, and he is one of its countless gears. Below, the bazaar is already loud. Bactrian camels grunt under loads of saffron from Kashmir. Parthian horse dealers shout prices in 3 languages. A line of Gondaran monks in saffron robes files past with begging bowls, their shaved heads gleaming like river stones. A Scythian woman with tattooed cheeks sells fermented mare's milk from skin bags. A Jewish merchant from Babylon weighs silver on a balance delicate as a spiderweb. The air is thick with cumin, horse sweat, and the sweet rot of pomegranates split open on reed mats. Darius descends the wooden stairs, each step creaking under the weight of history, and the crowd parts without thinking. They know the purple stripe on his tunic, the gold torque at his throat, the dagger with the lion head pommel. They know what it means to cross a satrap. At the gate of the inner citadel, the day's first petitioner waits, a village headman from the upper Oxus, turban askew, eyes red from 3 days' ride. He falls to his knees and touches his forehead to the dust. Lord, the river has taken our fields. The connaught collapsed in the spring flood. Without water, the barley will fail, and the tax. Darius raises a hand. The man falls silent. The satrap turns to Nicias. Send the royal engineer and 20 laborers. Repair the connaught before the second sowing. Deduct the cost from the village levy for 3 years. The headman weeps. Darius does not smile. Mercy is policy, not sentiment. Cyrus's ghost demands it. By mid-morning, he is in the saddle, riding the royal road eastward with an escort of 20 lancers. The road is wide enough for 3 chariots abreast, its surface packed with river gravel and rolled smooth by slave gangs every spring. Milestones, carved limestone drums, count the parasangs. From the King's Gate at Bactra, 7 parasangs to the ford of the Vaksh. The lancers wear scale shirts that flash like fish in the sun. Their lance pennons are crimson silk embroidered with the winged sun disk. They pass a caravan of Chinese silk, 50 camels nose to tail, bells chiming, guarded by crossbowmen in lacquered armor who bow stiffly when the satrap thunders past. Darius notes the number of bolts in their quivers, the condition of the lead camel's knees, the absence of the imperial seal on the lead bale. He will send a report tonight. Nothing escapes the eyes of the king. At noon they reach the relay station at Aornos, a mud brick fort with a well, stables, and a fire altar no larger than a dinner table. The station master, a Mede with one eye, presents fresh horses. Darius drinks watered wine from a silver rhyton shaped like a lion's head, eats bread and cheese, dictates 2 more tablets. One is for the treasury at Susa. The silk caravan lacks the king's mark. Investigate the governor of the stone tower. The other is for his wife, Statira, in the women's quarters back in Bactra. The pomegranates are ripe. Save the darkest for me. He seals it with his private ring, an intaglio of a mounted archer, and hands it to a rider who will reach the citadel by dusk. Distance is an illusion when the Empire wants it to be. The afternoon is for justice. In the shade of a plane tree outside the village of Naubahar, Darius sits on a carpet of Bokhara wool, while the local judge, a Zoroastrian priest with a beard down to his belt, reads the accusations. A farmer has stolen water from his neighbor's khanat. The evidence is a broken seal and a channel dug at night. The thief stands trembling, wrists bound with rawhide. Darius listens, asks 3 questions, renders judgment. The thief will repair the channel with his own hands, pay 1 sheep for every day the neighbor's field went dry, and wear a wooden collar in the bazaar for 1 month. The neighbor bows. The thief is led away. Justice is swift, public, and most importantly, recorded. A scribe scratches the verdict on a clay tablet, bakes it in the sun, files it in the fortress archive. In 20 years, if the thief's son claims the land, the tablet will speak. Evening finds the satrap at the fire temple on the hill above Bactra. The altar is fed with juniper and sandalwood. The flames paint the priest's faces bronze. Darius removes his bashlik, unties the sacred cord around his waist, the kusti, and recites the 101 names of Ahura Mazda. The priests chant in Avestan, a language older than memory. When the rite ends, he pours a libation of haoma onto the fire. The flames flare green, then settle into steady gold. Outside, the stars are coming out. Sirius, the wolf star, low on the horizon. The Pleiades like a handful of spilled salt. Somewhere beyond the walls, a nightingale sings in a pomegranate tree. Darius thinks of Statira, of the child she carries, of the letter that will reach her before moonset. He thinks of the king in distant Persepolis 1,500 miles away, who will read his reports and nod or frown. He thinks of the empire as a living body, arteries of roads, lungs of fire temples, heart beating in the king's breast. And for a moment, beneath the desert sky, he feels the weight of it all, the glory, the terror, the fragile miracle that keeps chaos at bay. But chaos is patient, far to the east. Beyond the iron gates where the mountains pinch the Oxus into a roaring gorge, a young prince of the Masajte sharpens an arrowhead of bronze. His name is Skunka, and his grandmother still tells the story of Queen Tamiris dipping Cyrus's head in blood. He has never seen the king's face, only the tax collector who comes every autumn with armed men and empty wagons. This year the wagons will return empty. Skunka has 2,000 horsemen hidden in the reed beds, their bows strung with sinew, their quivers full. When the collector reaches the ford at Kampir Tepe, the arrows will fly like hornets. The Empire will send an army, of course. 10,000 immortals, perhaps 20. But the mountains are high, the passes narrow, and winter comes early. By the time the snow melts, Skunka will be a legend, and the Empire will have learned again that distance is not just a number on a milestone. In the Indus Valley, another crack appears. The satrapy of Hindush is rich: cotton, ivory, spices, peacocks with tails like molten gold. But its governor, a Persian named Tishtria, has grown fond of Indian gold. He taxes the Brahmins, forbids the sacrifice of cows, sends the best elephants to the king's stables without recording the gift. The local Raja, a boy king named Chandragupta, watches from the walls of Taxila and learns. His tutor, a Brahmin named Chanakya, writes treatises on statecraft in a script no Persian can read. They wait. They watch the royal road, count the caravans, note the days when the relay horses are lame. One day the wagons will stop coming altogether. Back in Bactra, Darius sleeps beneath a canopy of silk embroidered with falcons. He dreams of fire, of the altar flame suddenly guttering, of darkness rushing in from the edges of the world. He wakes before dawn, sweating, and goes to the balcony. The city is quiet, the fire is banked low. Somewhere a dog barks. He thinks of the thief in the wooden collar, of the village headman whose fields will drink again, of the silk caravan that may never reach Susa. He thinks of the king, old now, his beard gone white, his eyes still sharp as a hawk's. He thinks of the child Statera carries, boy or girl. It will be born into this empire, will learn to ride before it can read, will wear the purple stripe one day or die trying. At the first hint of light, the fire priest climbs the steps again. The coals are ready, the prayer begins, and the empire, for one more day, turns. The Connaught sings beneath the fields, a subterranean river older than the pyramids. In the bazaar, the scales clink, the camels groan, the monks chant. On the royal road, a rider changes horses and spurs west, the clay tablet at his belt bearing Darius's seal and the king's lion. The message is simple, all is well. The fire burns, the road is open, but in the margins, in ink too faint for any eye but the king's, Nikias has added a line in Greek. The wolf is at the gate. We feed it, but it grows. The empire does not hear. It cannot. It is too vast, too proud, too certain of its own immortality. But the wolves hear. The mountains hear. The river hears. And somewhere, in the dark between stars, Angra Mainyu smiles. The fire never sleeps. In the temple of Adur Gushnasp, high on the ridge above the salt flats of Lake Urmia, the sacred flame has burned without pause since the day Cyrus himself carried a coal from the altar at Pasargadae in a bronze bowl balanced on the pommel of his saddle. That was 539 BC. Today, in the 36th year of Darius the Great, 486 BC, the flame is taller than a man, fed every watch by a magus whose beard is singed at the ends from leaning too close. The wood is tamarisk and almond, the incense myrrh from Saba, the oil pressed from the first olives of the royal groves at Istakhr. The fire crackles, spits, and speaks in a language only the priests pretend to understand. They call it the voice of Ahura Mazda. The Greeks will later call it chemistry. The truth is simpler. It is memory, kept alive by human hands. The chief magus, Ardvahisht, is 93. His spine is crooked as a shepherd's crook, but his eyes are black glass. He has outlived 4 kings and seen the empire swell like a wineskin until the seams groan. At dawn he climbs the 99 steps carved into the living rock, each one worn hollow by the feet of centuries. In his left hand he carries the barsum, 9 slender rods of pomegranate wood bound with a date palm fiber, and in his right the haoma press, a mortar of polished diorite. The acolytes follow in single file, barefoot, their white robes belted with the sacred kusti knotted 3 times for good thoughts, good words, good deeds. They do not speak. The only sound is the wind hissing through the arrow slits and the low thrum of the fire. Inside the inner sanctum, the flame dances in a bronze brazier shaped like a winged bull. The walls are black with soot, but if you press your palm to the stone, you can feel the pulse of heat that never cools. Ardvahisht kneels, unties the kusti, recites the Asham Vohu 99 times. Then he crushes the haoma stems, ephedra, mint, and a trace of opium poppy, until the juice runs green and bitter. He pours it over the fire. The flames flare violet, then settle into a steady gold. The acolytes inhale the smoke. Their pupils widen like the mouths of wells. For a moment the veil thins. They see the bridge of Chinvat, the scales of Rashnu, the paradise of endless light where the Fravashis of the righteous wait with garlands of lotus. Then the vision fades, and they are men again, coughing in the dark. But the Magi are not merely priests. They are the empire's memory, its calendar, its conscience. In the scriptorium beneath the temple, clay tablets are stacked to the ceiling, records of every eclipse since the reign of Thespis, every comet, every conjunction of Spica and the moon. The tablets are tagged with leather thongs color-coded by rain, scarlet for Cyrus, gold for Cambyses, lapis for Darius. A young scribe, Tiridates, copies the observations onto parchment in Aramaic, then translates them into Greek for the Ionian astronomers who visit every spring. They bring wine and questions. The Magi give them numbers and silence. The Greeks think they are learning the secrets of the stars. The Magi know the stars are only the beginning. At noon, the temple empties. The Magi descend to the Qanat that feeds the sacred grove. The tunnel is older than the temple, older than the empire. It begins 20 parasangs north, in the snowfields of Mount Sahand, where meltwater seeps into a fissure no wider than a man's fist. From there it flows underground, guided by gravity and genius, through a channel lined with fired clay rings. Every 50 cubits a vertical shaft rises to the surface. Air holes, maintenance wells, lifelines. The water is cold as death and sweet as mother's milk. It irrigates the pomegranate orchard where the haoma grows, the barley fields that feed the temple, the rose gardens whose petals are dried and shipped to the king's perfumers at Susa. The Qanat is the empire's bloodstream, and the Magi are its physicians. Ardvahisht walks the tunnel with a lantern of pierced bronze. The flame throws shadows that dance like devas on the curved walls. He stops at a crack no longer than his thumb. Water seeps through, dark as ink. He marks the spot with ochre, dictates a note to Tiridates. Shaft 47, seepage increasing. Send the Mukani. The Mukani are the Qanat diggers, a caste apart, born in the tunnels, raised in the dark. They descend on ropes woven from date fiber, armed with bronze picks and oil lamps. They work by feel, by the sound of dripping water, by the smell of earth that tells them when the clay turns to gravel. A good Mukani can extend a Qanat a full parasang in a year. A bad one can drown in his own tunnel. The empire pays them in silver and silence. Back at the temple, the afternoon is for judgment. A woman from the village of Shiz has been accused of adultery. Her husband, a cavalry decurion, demands the ordeal of fire. The Magi prepare the brazier with 9 handfuls of tamarisk and 1 of myrrh. The woman, her name is Banu, 22 winters, eyes the color of pistachio, steps forward barefoot. The crowd parts. She wears only a shift of undyed linen. Her hair is unbound, a river of black down her back. Ardvahisht speaks the ritual words, "If you are pure, the fire will not burn. If you are false, the lie will consume you." He does not believe a word of it. The fire is hot enough to blister, not to kill. The ordeal is theater, but theater keeps order. Banu walks the 9 steps. The heat rises in waves. Her shadow shrinks to nothing. On the 9th step, she stumbles, cries out, falls to her knees. The crowd gasps. But Ardvahisht sees the truth, a shard of pottery hidden in the ashes, placed there by the husband's brother who covets her dowry. He raises his staff. The ordeal is void. The husband is fined 50 sheep and banished to the garrison at Ecbatana. Banu is given a new robe and a plot of temple land. The crowd disperses, muttering. Justice is not always blind, but it must always be seen. Evening brings the yasna. The Magi gather in the inner sanctum, 9 in all, forming a circle around the fire. They chant the Gathas in Avestan, voices rising and falling like the wind through the arrow slits. The words are older than memory. Through the best thought, through the best word, through the best deed, I strive for the illumination of the world. Tiridates, new to the circle, stumbles over the archaic vowels. Ardvahisht corrects him with a glance. The chant continues for 3 hours until the stars wheel overhead and the fire burns low. Then they drink the haoma, 3 sips each, no more. The world tilts. The walls breathe. For a moment they are not men but Pravashis, guardians of the unborn, riding the wind between worlds. Outside, the empire sleeps. In the barracks, the decurion who lost his wife sharpens his dagger and dreams of revenge. In the Qanat, the Mukani sings to the dark, his voice echoing off the clay rings like a ghost. In the village, Banu plants roses on her new land, her fingers raw from the thorns. And far to the east, on the banks of the Indus, a boy named Chandragupta watches the royal road and counts the days until the wagons stop coming. But the fire never sleeps, and the empire, for one more night, turns. The Indus does not roar. It murmurs, thick with silt and the bodies of crocodiles, sliding past the walls of Taxila like a conspirator in the night. The city is old, older than Babylon, older than Susa, its streets laid in perfect grids before the Aryans ever sang of horses. In the royal palace, built of burnt brick the color of dried blood, the boy king Chandragupta sits cross-legged on a tiger skin and listens to the river. He is 16, slight of build, eyes the color of monsoon clouds. His tutor, Chanakya, paces the terrace with a stylus behind his ear and a mind sharper than any Khanda. Between them, on a low teak table, lies a clay tablet still wet from the scribe's reed, the annual tribute demand from the satrap of Hindush. To the King of Kings, Lord of the Four Quarters, from Tishraya, faithful servant, 1,000 talents of gold dust, 300 war elephants, 10,000 bales of cotton, 500 peacocks, 100 dancing girls of proven skill. Chanakya snorts. He forgot the moon. Chandragupta smiles, but it does not reach his eyes. He will have the moon when the wagons stop coming. Below the palace, the royal road enters the city through the gate of the rising sun. The pavement is cracked now, weeds pushing between the stones like green fingers. The relay station is half empty. Only 3 horses remain, ribs showing, eyes dull. The station master, a Persian named Artaphernus, counts the days since the last courier from Gandhara. 27. The empire is a body, and the blood is clotting. In the bazaar, the air is heavy with cardamom and betrayal. Greek mercenaries drink date wine and boast of Alexander's march. Jains in white robes argue with Buddhist monks over the price of pepper. A spy from Pataliputra, turban low, beard oiled, buys saffron with Mauryan silver and listens. The word is the same in every tongue, the wagons have not come. Tishraya the satrap knows it too. He sits in his audience hall, a squat fortress of mud brick and paranoia, and drinks wine from a rhyton shaped like a ram's head. His beard is streaked with gray. His hands tremble. The treasury is a cave of echoes, 3 chests of gold dust, 2 of cotton, 1 elephant with a broken tusk. The dancing girls fled last moon, taking the peacocks with them. He has sent 3 riders west. None have returned. At dusk, the first blood flows. It begins at the ford of the Jhelum, where the river bends like a bowstring. A caravan, 20 wagons, 50 oxen, 30 guards attempts the crossing. The water is low, the sandbars treacherous. From the reeds rise 200 men in cotton armor, faces blackened with ash. They are not Persians. They are not Greeks. They are the sons of the soil, led by a captain named Vishnugupta, Chanakya's nephew, Chandragupta's shadow. Their arrows are tipped with ironwood. Their swords are the short, curved kukri of the hill tribes. The guards fall without a cry. The oxen are cut free. The wagons are burned. The gold dust is poured into the river, a libation to the goddess of rebellion. By midnight, the smoke is visible from Taxila. Chandragupta stands on the palace roof, the wind whipping his dhoti. Chanakya joins him silent. Below, the city gates are barred. Torches move along the walls like fireflies. The boy king speaks first. How many wagons did we burn?
20. How many remain in the satrap's yard?
43. Then we burn 42 more. And on the 43rd, we send Tishraya's head to Darius in a basket of peacocks. The mathematics of rebellion is simple. 1 spark, 100 fires. Across the empire, the cracks widen. In Babylon, the governor Megapanus wakes to find the ziggurat of Marduk draped in black cloth. The priests have declared a month of mourning for the king who is not a king. The granaries are guarded by Jewish mercenaries who take their pay in silver and their orders from no one. In Sardis, the Lydian treasury is empty. The satrap Oroetes has melted the derricks and restruck them with his own face, a profile so vain it makes Croesus look humble. Greek triremes patrol the harbor, flying the owl of Athens. In Ecbatana, the summer palace echoes with the cough of an old king. Darius is 70, his joints swollen with gout, his dreams haunted by the Behistun cliff where he once stood triumphant. He dictates letters to scribes whose hands shake worse than his own. To the satraps of the east, send tribute or send your heads. The wax seals crack in the heat. The riders never leave the gate, and in the Qanat beneath Persepolis, the water slows to a trickle. The Mukani descend and find the tunnel collapsed. Deliberately, with bronze crowbars and Greek fire. The roses in the king's garden wither. The fire on the altar sputters. The Magi chant louder, but the flame hears only its own death. Back on the Indus, the second spark ignites. Chandragupta rides at dawn with 3,000 men, hill archers, Punjabi spearmen, Gandharan cavalry on horses no larger than ponies but faster than the wind. They strike the satrap's fortress at noon, when the guards are drunk on bhang and the sun is a hammer. The gates are breached with a tree trunk wrapped in wet hides. The courtyard becomes a slaughter pen. Tishraya dies on his throne, the ram's head rhyton still in his hand, wine and blood mingling on the marble. His head is wrapped in silk, placed in a basket of peacock feathers, and tied to the saddle of a rider who will ride west until the royal road ends or his horse dies. The fortress burns for 3 days. The smoke is seen in Pataliputra, where Porus's son sharpens his tusks and dreams of elephants. It is seen in the Hindu Kush, where the Masajte count their arrows. It is seen in the palace at Susa, where the king's spies bring the news on tablets that crumble in their hands. Darius reads the last report by lamplight. The wax is the color of dried blood. The words are Aramaic, but the meaning is Avestan. The lie has entered the house of truth. He summons his council, 7 nobles, 7 daggers, 7 ghosts of the night he killed Gaumata. They speak of armies, of immortals, of the royal road. He listens, then dismisses them with a wave. Alone he walks to the terrace where the roses are dead. The night is cold. The stars are sharp. He speaks to the dark. Cyrus, you promised eternity. Where is it now? The wind answers with the smell of smoke from the east. In Taxila, Chandragupta plants a banyan tree where Tishtriya's throne once stood. Its roots will drink the blood of the satrap and grow stronger. Chanakya writes the first line of a new treatise. The king is the root, the people the branches, the army the fruit. Cut the root, and the tree dies. The boy king reads it and nods. The empire is a tree, and the axe is already swinging. Far to the west, a rider reaches the gates of Persepolis at dawn. His horse collapses and dies. He staggers forward, the basket in his arms. The guards open it. The peacocks are dead. The head is not. Tishtriya's eyes are open, staring at the king who sent him to the edge of the world and forgot to bring him back. The king does not scream. He does not weep. He simply closes the eyes with 2 fingers and orders the head buried with the peacocks in the royal garden where the roses used to grow. Then he returns to his chamber, lies on the cedar bed, and waits for the fever that will kill him in 3 days. The empire does not fall that day. It bleeds. It limps. It begins to forget its own name. But on the banks of the Indus, a new name is spoken in the dark, Moria. The tree is planted, the axe is sharp, the river murmurs, thick with silt and the promise of tomorrow. The fever comes on the 3rd night after the peacock basket. Darius lies on a cedar bed inlaid with ivory lotus, the sheets soaked with sweat that smells of vinegar and iron. The palace physicians, Greeks in linen, Egyptians in leopard skin, Indians with henned beards, circle like crows, their poultices steaming, their incantations clashing. One burns a safutida, another sprinkles bull's blood, a third presses a cold obsidian blade to the king's temples. None of it works. The fever is not in the body. It is in the empire, and the empire is in the king. He dreams he is standing on the Behistun cliff again, 28 years old, bow in hand, foot on Gaumata's neck. But the rebel kings in chains behind him are not the 9 he crushed. They are the satraps he appointed, Oroetes, Tishtria, Megapanus, Artaphernes, each with a noose of gold around his throat. Their mouths move, but no sound comes. Instead, the wind carries the murmur of the Indus, thick with silt and rebellion. The cliff crumbles beneath his feet. He falls, not into the valley, but into the royal road itself, stretched like a ribbon of dust from Susa to Taxila. The milestones are skulls, the relay stations are pyres, and at the far end, a boy on a tiger skin raises an axe made of moonlight. He wakes, gasping. The room is dark except for the lamp of a single oil flame. A figure sits at the foot of the bed, tall, hooded, motionless. Darius knows the shape. It is Death, or perhaps Cyrus, or perhaps both. The figure speaks without moving its lips. You built the road. Now walk it. The king tries to rise. His legs are stone. The figure leans closer. Beneath the hood is his own face, but younger, eyes bright with the fire of conquest. It smiles the smile he has not worn since Marathon. The empire is a dream. Dreams end at dawn. The physicians find him at sunrise, rigid, eyes open to a sky he will never see again. They close the lids with silver derricks. The empire's heart stops beating, but empires do not die with their kings. They bleed out slowly in back corridors and border garrisons, in the silence between courier horses. In the spring of 401 BC, 15 years after Darius's death, a Greek named Xenophon stands on a hill in Cunaxa, 60 miles from Babylon, and watches the impossible happen. He is 30, lean as a hunting dog, beard trimmed in the Spartan style. He has marched 500 miles with 10,000 mercenaries, hoplites from Arcadia, slingers from Rhodes, peltasts from Crete, all hired by a Persian prince named Cyrus the Younger, who promised them silver and glory. The prince lies dead in the dust now, his throat opened by a javelin, his dream of seizing the throne from his brother Artaxerxes II bleeding out with him. The Greek generals, Clearchus, Proxenus, Menon, have been invited to a parley and treacherously murdered, their heads struck off and displayed on spears. The army is leaderless, surrounded by 100,000 Persians, 900 miles from the sea. Xenophon steps forward. He is not a general. He is a student of Socrates, a writer of dialogues, a man who has never commanded more than a platoon. But he has a voice like bronze, and the men are desperate. He speaks in the dusk, the campfires flickering on bronze shields. The Persians have numbers. We have order. They have horses. We have legs that will not stop. The road home is long, but it is a road, and roads were made for marching. They vote with a roar. Xenophon is elected. The 10,000 turn north. The march begins at dawn. The column is 3 miles long. Hoplites in the center, 8 shields deep. Sarissas bristling like a moving forest. Slingers and archers on the wings. Baggage in the rear, mules and camp followers and the wounded carried on shields. The Persians shadow them, cataphracts in scale armor, scythe chariots gleaming, but they do not attack. They have learned at Marathon, at Plataea, at Cunaxa, Greeks in formation are death. The first test comes at the Zapatas River. The satrap Tissaphernes has burned the bridges. The Greeks build rafts from inflated goatskins, cross under a hail of arrows, form a square on the far bank, and dare the Persians to come. They do not. The square marches on. Winter finds them in the Carduchian Mountains, Kurdistan, wild and trackless. The passes are held by tribesmen who roll boulders from the cliffs and vanish like smoke. The Greeks lose 2,000 men in ambushes, their bodies left for wolves. Xenophon orders the wounded carried on litters, the dead burned with their armor. At night he writes in a diary by firelight, the pages later to become the Anabasis, the March Up Country, the first war memoir in history. Spring brings the Armenian plateau, snow knee-deep, the centurions breaking trail with their shields. Frostbite claims toes, then feet, then lives. The men eat their horses, then the grass, then their own belts boiled in snow. Xenophon trades his last silver cup for a skin of sour wine and drinks it with the rear guard, singing Pindar to keep the darkness out. In the Taurus Mountains they meet the Taochi, who fight naked except for red paint and fury. The Greeks take a village, find the women hurling their children from the cliffs rather than be captured, then leaping after them. Xenophon writes, "We stood silent, for we had seen the face of freedom." Summer burns the plains of Anatolia. The column is down to 8,600, but the survivors are bronze. They have marched 3,000 miles, fought 20 battles, crossed 17 rivers. The Persians have followed, harassed, but never closed. The immortals, those golden elite who once made the earth shake, have become shadows. Their scale armor sold for bread, their pomegranates pawned for arrows. And then, on a ridge above the Black Sea, the vanguard crests the hill and sees it. The sea, gray and endless, gulls wheeling like white spears. The cry goes up, first one voice, then 1,000, then the entire army. Thalata! Thalata! The sea! The sea! They weep, they embrace. They throw their shields in the air and catch them again. Xenophon stands apart, tears cutting channels through the dust on his cheeks. He has brought them home, not to Greece. Greece is still 500 miles away, but to the edge of the world they know. The Persians cannot follow here. The immortals are immortal no more. The news reaches Susa on a clay tablet sealed with a broken lion. Artaxerxes too reads it in the hall of 100 columns, the echo of Greek voices still ringing in his ears. He does not rage. He does not weep. He simply orders the tablet filed in the archive and the writer paid double. The empire has lost 10,000 Greeks, but it has lost something greater, the myth of invincibility. In Persepolis, the fire on the altar burns low. The Magi add cedar, but the flame gutters. A crack has appeared in the bronze brazier, thin as a hair, running from the bull's wing to its heart. The priests see it and say nothing. The empire sees it and pretends not to. Far to the east, Chandragupta, now 25, king of Magadha, master of the Mauryan Empire, reads a copy of Xenophon's diary, translated into Sanskrit by a Greek prisoner. He smiles the smile of a man who has learned the final lesson. The road is not the empire's. The road is the world's, and the world is waiting. In the ruins of Cunaxa, the wind stirs the dust where Cyrus the Younger fell. A single derrick lies half buried, the king's archer worn smooth by time. A shepherd boy finds it, bites it, pockets it. He does not know the king's name. He does not need to. The metal is good. The road goes on. And the fever dream of Darius, 30 years cold, still walks the night. The Hellespont is black glass at midnight. The water laps the hulls of 160 triremes like a catted cream. And the only light is the low moon caught in the bronze ram of the royal flagship. Alexander stands at the prow, 20 years old, hair the color of hammered gold, eyes the color of storm. He wears no crown, only a plain causia pulled low, a crimson cloak pinned at the shoulder with a lion brooch stolen from his father's corpse. Behind him, the army waits in silence. 32,000 foot, 5,100 horse, 2,000 engineers, 600 ships. Ahead, the coast of Asia is a darker line against the dark. Somewhere beyond it, the Persian Empire sleeps, unaware that a boy with a spear is about to cut its throat. He lifts the spear, iron head, ash shaft, the same one Philip used at Chaeronea, and hurls it over the water. It arcs, glints once in the moonlight, and buries itself in the Asian sand with a sound like a god sighing. I accept Asia as a spear-won gift. The words are soft, meant only for the night, but the oarsmen hear them and pass them down the line. By dawn, every man in the fleet will know. The king has claimed the continent before setting foot on it. They land at the tomb of Protesilaus, the first Greek to die at Troy. Alexander leaps from the ship first, armor clanking, sandals splashing in the surf. He kneels, presses his palm to the sand still warm from yesterday's sun, and whispers a prayer to Achilles. Then he mounts Bucephalus, black as sin, eyes rolling white, and rides inland, the army streaming behind like bronze ants. The Persians watch from the hills, 20,000 horse under the satraps Arsites and Spithridates, and do nothing. They have orders from the King of Kings. Harass, delay, do not engage. The orders will kill them. The Granicus River is shallow in May, knee-deep on a horse, but the banks are steep and the current swift. The Persian cavalry line the eastern ridge, lances lowered, scale armor flashing like fish scales. Behind them, Greek mercenaries, 5,000 hoplites hired by Memnon of Rhodes, stand in reserve, shields locked, waiting for the fools to charge. Alexander does not wait. He forms the army at noon, sun at their backs, dust devils dancing between the lines. The right wing is his, companions in boar tusk helmets, lances 12 feet long, horses caparisoned in scarlet. The left is Parmenion, old and cautious, holding the Hypaspists and Thessalian cavalry. The center is the phalanx, sarissas up like a steel forest. Trumpets sound. The companions walk, then trot, then charge. The river explodes. Horses scream as arrows thud into flesh. Alexander is in the front rank, white plumes streaming, existent leveled. A Persian noble, Rusaces, satrap of Ionia, rides straight at him, scimitar raised. Alexander parries with his shield, drives the spear through the man's throat, feels the hot spray on his cheek. Another satrap, Spithridates, swings from behind. The blade catches Alexander's helmet, shears the plume, splits the bronze. Blood runs into his eye. He spins, thrusts upward under the armpit, feels the spear grate on ribs. The satrap topples, dead before he hits the water. The companions hit the Persian line like a hammer on glass. The river turns red. Horses rear, men drown in scale armor, lances snap like kindling. On the left, Parmenians, Thessalians faint, draw the Persian left away, then wheel and strike the flank. The phalanx crosses under a rain of javelins, forms on the east bank, lowers sarissas. The Greek mercenaries see the rout and hesitate. Memnon screams orders, but it is too late. The phalanx advances, a wall of bronze and ash, and the mercenaries break. By sunset, the river is choked with corpses. 2,000 Persian horse lie dead. 1,000 Greek mercenaries surrender, wrists bound with their own belts. Alexander's losses, 115 men, 34 horses. He walks the field barefoot, spear trailing, and weeps, not for the dead, but for the silence. The Persians are gone. The road to Sardis lies open. The empire has blinked. That night he sits alone in his tent, helmet dented, cheek stitched with linen thread. A Thracian groom leads in a dog, a Molossian hound, ribs showing, one ear torn. The animal had followed the army from Macedonia, living on scraps, sleeping under wagons. It limps to Alexander, licks the blood from his hand, curls at his feet. The king strokes its head and cries like a child. Parmenion finds him there at dawn, eyes red, the dog asleep on his cloak. Sire, the satraps flee to the interior. Sardis opens its gates. Alexander wipes his face. Then we march at first light, and the dog comes with us. They name the dog Peritas. He will march to the Indus and die at the siege of Multan, buried with a mound and a marble lion. But that is years away. Tonight, the king sleeps with a hound at his feet and dreams of rivers yet uncrossed. The silence after Granicus spreads like plague. In Sardis, the treasury yields 2,000 talents and the keys to the Acropolis. The Lydian nobles prostrate themselves, foreheads to marble. Alexander raises them up, speaks in Greek, promises justice. He leaves a garrison of 500 and rides south. Miletus falls in a day. The Persian fleet scatters. Halicarnassus resists for a month. Memnon's siege engines hurl stones the size of oxen. Greek fire lights the night, but the walls crack, the gates burn. The city surrenders. Memnon escapes by sea, vowing revenge. Alexander razes the lower town, keeps the Acropolis, and moves on. Winter finds him at Gordium in the Phrygian highlands. The famous knot, oxhide ropes thick as a man's thigh, ends hidden in the weave, hangs in the palace of Midas. The oracle says, whoever looses the knot will rule Asia. Crowds gather. Alexander studies the tangle, fingers the rough hide, then draws his sword and cuts it in one stroke. Thunder rolls overhead, though the sky is clear. The crowd cheers. The king smiles, the small, private smile of a man who has just rewritten prophecy. Spring brings the Cilician gates, a pass so narrow 2 horses cannot ride abreast. Persian scouts watch from the cliffs. Alexander sends climbers at night, Thracian mountaineers with ropes and iron spikes. They scale the rock, drop knotted cords, haul up 500 hypaspists. At dawn, the Persians wake to find Greeks above and below. They flee. The gates open. Tarsus lies ahead, its rivers cold with snowmelt. Alexander bathes in the Cydnus, the water icy from the Taurus. Fever grips him, lungs burning, limbs heavy. The army camps outside the walls, restless. Parmenion begs him to rest. The king refuses. He rises on the 3rd day, pale as parchment, and rides through the gates bareheaded. The fever breaks in the cheers of the men, south to Issus, where the coastal plain narrows between mountains and sea. Darius III waits with 100,000 men, immortals in gold scale, Indian elephants trumpeting, scythed chariots gleaming. The numbers are lies, but the fear is real. Alexander has 40,000. He forms at dusk, the sea at his back, the mountains at his left. Darius forms across the Pinarus River. Chariots in front, immortals in the center. Greek mercenaries on the wings. The battle begins at moonrise. Alexander leads the companions on the right, charging along the beach, hooves drumming on wet sand. The Persian left crumbles. In the center, the phalanx crosses the river under a storm of arrows, sarissas lowered, shields locked. The immortals meet them spear to spear, but the sarissas are longer, the push relentless. Men fall screaming, trampled into the mud. Darius watches from a golden chariot, purple cloak billowing. He sees his left wing break, his center buckle. Panic flickers in his eyes. Alexander sees it too. He wheels the companions inward, cuts toward the royal standard. The immortals close ranks, a wall of gold and iron. The king's spear finds a gap, drives through a breastplate, lifts a man off his feet. Another takes his place. The circle tightens, then the chariot bolts. Darius leaps to a horse, cloak abandoned, diadem lost in the dust. The Persian center sees the standard fall and breaks. The rout is total. 50,000 dead, the rest fleeing into the night. Alexander captures the royal baggage, 300 talents, the king's mother, wife, daughters. He treats them with courtesy, calls them family. The harem becomes his court, the princesses his tutors in Persian ways. That night he sits by the captured campfire, Peritas at his feet, and writes in his diary. The great king fled. I have his tent, his gold, his women, but I have not his empire. Not yet. The dog licks his hand. The king sleeps. The silence after Issus is deeper than Granicus. In Susa, the court eunuchs burn incense and whisper of omens. In Persepolis, the fire on the altar flickers and dies for the first time in memory. The Magi relight it with trembling hands. In Babylon, the priests of Marduk close the temple gates and wait for the next conqueror. Alexander marches south, through the Syrian gates, past the cedar forests of Lebanon. Tyre resists for 7 months. He builds a mole across the harbor, towers of wood and stone, catapults hurling boulders the size of horses. The city falls, 8,000 crucified on the beach, 30,000 sold into slavery. Gaza falls in two. The desert claims 1,000 men, but Egypt opens its arms. At Memphis, the priests crown him pharaoh. The Apis bull lows approval. He founds Alexandria, marks the harbor with a cloak, and dreams of a city that will outshine Carthage. Then east, to the oracle of Ammon in Siwa. The desert is white with salt, the sun a furnace. The priests greet him as son of Zeus. He asks one question, receives one answer, and tells no one. On the way back, Peritus kills a lion with his teeth. Alexander laughs for the first time in months. The silence is complete. The Persian Empire is a hollow shell, its satraps fleeing, its army scattered, its king a fugitive in his own realm. The road to Persepolis lies open, the treasury unguarded, the fire waiting to be quenched. Alexander stands on the Persian gates, snow in his hair, Peritus panting at his side. Below, the plain stretches to the horizon, golden with wheat, dotted with fire temples. He raises his spear, not to throw, but to point. There, he says to the dog. There is the heart of the world. The dog barks once, sharp and clear. The king smiles, and the silence breaks. The Persian gates are teeth of stone biting the sky. Snow clings to the crags like salt on a wound, and the wind howls through the pass with the voice of a dying god. Alexander stands on the highest ridge, cloak snapping, Bucephalus steaming beneath him. Below, the plain of Fars unfurls, green and gold, stitched with qanats, dotted with fire temples whose flames are pinpricks against the dusk. Persepolis lies at the center, a jewel box of cedar and marble, its columns catching the last light like spears of fire. Parmenion rides up, breath fogging. The pass is held. Bessus has 10,000 immortals, Cardaces, hill tribes. The road narrows to a goat track. We lose the phalanx, we lose the war. Alexander's eyes do not leave the city. Then we do not use the road. That night, 500 Thracian mountaineers scale the cliffs under a moonless sky. They carry ropes of hemp, iron grapples, sacks of Greek fire. At dawn, they drop behind the Persian line, light the fuses, hurl the clay pots. Flames bloom orange against the snow. The immortals turn, confused, shields facing the wrong way. Alexander charges the pass with the companions, Peritas bounding ahead, teeth bared. The phalanx follows in columns of 4, sarissas angled like lances. The Persians break in minutes. Bessus flees east, cloak trailing like a bloodstain. The gates of Persia lie open. They enter Persepolis at noon on the first day of spring. The city is not a city, it is a ceremony frozen in stone. 106 columns rise from the terrace, each carved with double-headed bulls, wings spread as if to embrace the sky. The Apadana staircase is a river of reliefs. Medes with stallions, Indians with ivory, Arabs with camels, Egyptians with lotus. The tribute-bearers march forever toward a throne that is empty. Alexander walks the length of it barefoot, Peritus at his heel, and feels the weight of 2 centuries pressing on his shoulders. The treasury yields 120,000 talents of gold and silver, enough to pave the royal road from Susa to Sardis. The king orders it counted, stacked, sealed. Then he walks the palaces, the hall of 100 columns, the harem with its cedar ceilings painted with stars, the private chambers where Darius once slept beneath a canopy of purple silk. In the queen's bathroom, he finds a perfume jar still half full, rose and spikenard, the scent of a woman who fled with her children. He lifts it to his nose, closes his eyes, and for a moment is not a conqueror, but a boy who has broken into a house too large for him. That night, the army camps on the plain. Fires dot the darkness like fallen constellations. The men are drunk on captured wine, singing Pindar and bawdy songs from Thessaly. Alexander sits apart on the terrace steps, Peritus asleep across his lap. A courtesan from Athens, Thais, red hair, voice like honey, brings him a cup. She is barefoot, wearing a looted Persian robe of transparent silk. They say the palace must burn. She whispers, for Athens. For the temples, Xerxes torched. Alexander looks at the city glowing in the firelight. And after it burns? Then the world is yours alone. He drinks the wine. It tastes of smoke and regret. The burning begins at midnight. Torches arc through the air like comets. Cedar beams catch with a roar, centuries of resin exploding into flame. The columns crack, capitals topple, bulls shatter into 1,000 pieces. The reliefs blacken, the Medes, the Indians, the Arabs. Faces erased by fire as if the empire itself is being unmade. The heat is a furnace. Men shield their faces with cloaks. Peritas howls, a sound of pure grief. Alexander stands on the terrace, silhouetted against the inferno, and does not move. Darius dances in the sparks, robe burning at the hem, laughing like a Maenad. The army cheers. The city burns for 3 days and 3 nights. When the flames die, only the stone terrace remains, blackened, cracked, smoking. The treasury is untouched. Alexander's mercy or his madness? No one knows. He leaves Persepolis in ruins and rides east, hunting Darius. The chase is a fever. Through the Caspian gates, across the salt desert of Dasht-i-Kavir, into the highlands of Parthia. The army marches 20 miles a day, living on dates and horse blood. Peritas grows thin, ribs showing, but refuses to leave the king's side. Bessus has Darius prisoner now, chained in a wagon, diadem stripped, beard shorn. The last king of kings is a broken man, whispering prayers to a god who has abandoned him. They catch them at the edge of Bactria, near the Oxus River. Bessus's men see the dust cloud and panic. They stab Darius in the wagon, throat, belly, heart, then flee. Alexander finds the king dying in the dust, blood bubbling with every breath. He kneels, cradles the man's head. Darius's eyes focus, recognize the golden hair, the storm-gray gaze. Water, he croaks. Alexander lifts a helmet full from the river, holds it to the cracked lips. Darius drinks, coughs, dies. The king closes the eyes with 2 fingers, as he once closed Tishtria's. That night he puts on the purple. The robe is silk, dyed with Tyrian murex, heavy with gold thread. It belonged to Darius, found in the baggage train, folded in cedar. Alexander stands in his tent, the fabric cool against his skin, the weight of it like a second skeleton. Hephaestion watches silent. Peritas whines. The king fastens the lion brooch at the shoulder, adjusts the diadem, a simple band of white silk with a single sapphire. He looks in a polished bronze mirror and does not recognize the face. Older, harder, eyes ringed with firelight. "I am the king of kings," he says to the reflection. The reflection does not answer. Outside, the army acclaims him. The Macedonians cheer. The Persians prostrate themselves. The world bends the knee. But in the tent, Peritas curls at his feet and dreams of rivers yet uncrossed. The hunt for Bessus continues. Into Bactria, across the Oxus on inflated skins, through the iron gates where the mountains pinch the sky. The Sogdians resist. Rock forts, guerrilla arrows, winter snow. Alexander marries Roxana, daughter of a local baron, in a tent of felt and gold. She is 16, fierce, eyes like a hawk. The wedding is Persian. The bride cuts a loaf with a sword. The groom drinks from a cup of mare's milk. Hephaestion stands witness, face unreadable. Peritas sleeps through it all. Bessus is betrayed by his own men, bound hand and foot, delivered naked to the king. Alexander orders the Persian punishment, nose and ears cut off, then crucifixion between 2 trees. The traitor screams as the blades bite. Peritas watches, tail thumping, as if it is a hunt. The empire is his now, from the Nile to the Jaxartes, but the edges fray. In India, Porus waits with 200 elephants and a river to cross. In Gedrosia, the desert waits with thirst. In Babylon, the priests wait with omens. And in the king's heart, a small crack begins, widening with every mile, every purple robe. Every night he dreams of Darius dying in his arms. The fire of Persepolis is ash, but the smoke still rises. The hunt is not over. The king rides east, purple cloak billowing, Peritas at his heel, and the world follows, or breaks. The Hydaspes is a river of bronze at dawn. Monsoon clouds hang low, bruised purple, and the water reflects them like a mirror cracked by thunder. Alexander stands on the western bank, rain hissing on his cloak, watching the far shore where Porus's army waits. 200 elephants in iron-studded leather, towers on their backs, archers in scarlet, trunks painted with vermilion. The river is 800 yards wide here, swollen with rain, current fast enough to sweep a horse downstream like a leaf. Behind the king, 35,000 men huddle under cloaks. Sarissas wrapped in oilskin, faces gaunt from the Hindu Kush. Peritas sits at his feet, soaked, eyes fixed on the elephants as if they are prey. Parmenion rides up, mud to the knees. We wait for the water to fall. A week, maybe 2. The men are spent. Alexander does not turn. Porus waits too. Every day he waits, he grows stronger. We cross tonight. The plan is madness. At midnight, 5,000 men, hypaspists, Agrianians, horse archers, slip upstream 17 miles to a bend where the river splits around an island thick with tamarisk. Rafts are lashed from inflated skins and wagon planks. Horses swim beside, noses barely above water. Thunder masks the splash. Lightning shows the far bank empty. Porus has pulled his scouts south, expecting a frontal assault. Alexander leads the first raft, Peritas paddling beside, teeth clenched on the king's cloak. They land at false dawn, form square, light no fires. The rain hides them. The main army faints at the original ford. Catapults hurling stones, triremes dragged overland on rollers, trumpets blaring. Porus marches south, elephants trumpeting, leaving 50 beasts and 3,000 men to guard the real crossing. Alexander strikes at sunrise. The battle is chaos. The Macedonian right, companions under Conus, charges the Indian left, lances lowered. The elephants meet them, towers swaying, arrows raining. Horses rear, screaming. Lances splinter on iron plates. Alexander wheels left, finds a gap, drives for Porus's chariot. The Indian king stands 9 feet tall in scale armor, white plume, sword longer than a man. An elephant charges. Alexander's horse rears, throws him. He rolls, comes up inside the beast's guard, slashes the trunk. Blood sprays like rain. The mahout topples, arrow in the throat. Peritas leaps, locks jaws on an archer's leg, drags him from the tower. The elephant panics, crashes into its own line. The phalanx advances across floating bridges, pontoons of boats lashed with ropes, sarissas leveled. Elephants impale themselves on the points, drivers fall, towers burn. Porus fights on foot now, sword flashing until a javelin pins his thigh. He sinks, blood pooling. Alexander rides up, dismounts, offers water. Porus drinks, eyes never leaving the king's. "How shall I treat you?" Alexander asks. "As a king," Porus answers. Alexander smiles. "That I will do, for my own sake." The aftermath is slaughter and mercy. Elephants captured, 23,000 Indians dead, 12,000 prisoners. Macedonian losses 1,000. The river runs red for days. Alexander founds 2 cities, Nicaea at the victory site, Bucephala where his horse dies of wounds, buried under a mound with a bronze statue. Peritas licks the king's hand as the pyre burns, then curls beside the fresh grave and will not eat. They march south along the river, the monsoon a gray curtain. The men wade knee-deep in mud, leeches thick as fingers, dysentery claiming 1 in 10. Alexander rides at the rear, purple cloak sodden, eyes hollow. The army sings no more. At the Isocines they meet the Malians, tribal warriors in cotton armor, bows of bamboo, arrows poisoned with viper venom. The siege of their mud brick citadel is brutal. Alexander scales the wall first, shield strapped to his arm, Peritas scrambling after. An arrow takes him under the ribs, through the lung, out the back. He falls inside the wall, blood bubbling. The companions roar, storm the breach, massacre every man, woman, child. Peritas stands over the king, teeth bared until the surgeons come. They cut the arrow, cauterize with hot iron. Alexander screams once, then is silent. For 3 days he hovers between worlds, Peritas refusing to leave his side. He recovers enough to be carried on a litter to the confluence of the Hydaspes and Assassines. There he builds a fleet, 80 triremes, 200 riverboats, loads the wounded, the elephants, the treasure. The army marches the banks. The fleet sails the current. They reach the Indus Delta in autumn, the sea a sheet of hammered copper. Alexander sacrifices to Poseidon, throws a golden cup into the waves. Peritas watches, tail thumping weakly, but the men have marched 11,000 miles. Their sandals are rags, their shields patched with elephant hide, their eyes fixed on a horizon that never ends. At the Hyphasis, modern bees, the mutiny begins. It is not dramatic. No swords drawn, no shouts, just silence. The army halts at noon, forms square, stands. Conus, oldest of the companions, steps forward. His voice is hoarse from dust. "Sire, we have marched to the edge of the world." The men ask to see their children before they die. Alexander stares. The square does not move. Peritas growls, low, uncertain. The king retreats to his tent alone. For 3 days he does not eat, does not speak. Messengers bring reports. Beyond the river, kingdoms of gold, armies of 1,000,000, rivers that flow uphill. He does not listen. On the 4th day he emerges, face gaunt, eyes older than the mountains. He speaks to the army from a platform of shields. "Go home. Tell them Alexander turned back because his men were afraid." The silence is worse than cheers. They weep. not for joy but for shame. He orders the retreat. 12 altars are built on the Hyphasis bank, 30 feet high, of local stone inscribed in Greek. Here Alexander stopped. Oxen are sacrificed. Games held, prizes of gold crowns. Then the army turns west. The altars stand to this day, half buried in jungle, moss on the letters. The march back is hell, south through the Punjab, then west into Gedrosia, the Makran Desert. 400 miles of sand and salt, no water, no shade. Alexander chooses the route to punish the men, or himself, or both. The fleet under Nearchus sails the coast, but storms scatter it. The army marches inland, living on camel flesh, then dates, then their own dead. 40,000 perish, heat, thirst, despair. Peritus dies on the 3rd week, carried in the king's arms until the last breath. Alexander buries him under a tamarisk, carves no stone, speaks no words. The men see the king weep for a dog and say nothing. They reach the Persian Gulf in spring, skeletons in bronze. Nearchus limps in with 20 ships, tales of sea monsters and pearl divers. Alexander sacrifices to the gods who brought them through, then rides north to Babylon. The empire is his, but it is a corpse. The satraps have grown fat. Harpalus fled to Greece with 5,000 talents. Pithon executes rebels without trial. Roxana poisons Persian wives to secure her unborn child. Alexander executes, demotes, marries again. Statira, Darius's daughter, in a mass wedding at Susa, where 10,000 Macedonians take Persian brides. The empire fused in flesh. The veterans hate it. The Persians bow lower. The crack widens. In Babylon, he plans new wars. Arabia, Carthage, the Western Ocean. He builds a fleet of 1,000 ships on the Euphrates, trains Phoenician sailors, sacrifices to Bel-Marduk. The priests warn of omens. The sacred bull dies. The Tigris runs black. A jackal enters the palace. Alexander laughs, drinks, feasts. On the night of June 10th, 323 BC, he drinks unmixed wine with Medius of Larissa. The fever returns, hotter, faster. He is carried to the palace of Nebuchadnezzar, laid on a golden bed. The army files past, 30,000 men silent. He raises a hand, tries to speak, cannot. Peritas is dead, Bucephalus is dead, Hephaestion is dead. The empire is a hollow drum. He dies at sunset, 32 years old, the world at his feet and no one to give it to. The last words, whispered to the empty air, to the strongest. The army weeps, the empire fractures. The altars on the Hyphasis stand alone, the jungle swallowing the Greek letters one by one. But the river flows on, bronze at dawn, red at dusk, carrying the echo of a king who turned back because his men asked to see their children. And somewhere, in the tamarisk grove of Gedrosia, a dog's bones lie under sand, waiting for the wind to uncover them. The body of Alexander lies in a coffin of hammered gold, filled with honey and spices, the scent of myrrh drifting through the palace halls like a ghost. Babylon is a furnace in June. The Euphrates steams, the air thick with flies and grief. For 7 days the army files past, 30,000 men in bronze and leather, faces carved by sun and sorrow. Perdiccas stands at the head of the bier, hand on the lion-headed sword, eyes red but dry. He is regent now, or thinks he is. The empire is a carcass, and the jackals circle. The first blade falls in the throne room. Craterus, old and scarred, demands the body be sent to Macedon, to be buried at Aegae with the Argead kings. Ptolemy, lean as a wolf, claims Egypt has the better tomb, Alexandria, the city of the future. Meleager, drunk on power and wine, shouts that the infantry will decide. Perdiccas raises a hand. Silence drops like a curtain. The king said, to the strongest, let the strongest prove it. The wars begin before the honey cools. Year 1, the partition of Babylon. The great hypostyle hall where Nebuchadnezzar once feasted. The successors carve the world like a roast. Ptolemy takes Egypt and the coffin, hijacks the funeral cortege on the road to Damascus, buries Alexander in a sarcophagus of alabaster beneath a lighthouse yet unbuilt. Antigonus claims Phrygia, his one eye gleaming like a coin. Lysimachus gets Thrace, the wild north where the Danube freezes. Seleucus is given Babylon, a city of dust and intrigue, and a title no one believes, satrap. Cassander, still in Pella, poisons Olympias and crowns himself king of Macedon before the news reaches Asia. Perdiccas keeps the royal army, 20,000 phalangites. 1,000 companions, and the purple cloak.
He marries Alexander's sister Cleopatra, dreams of reuniting the empire under one diadem. The others smile, bow, and sharpen their knives. Year 2. The first war Perdiccas marches south to crush Ptolemy. The Nile is in flood, crocodiles sun on the banks. At the fortress of Camel's Wall, the phalanx bogs in mud, elephants trumpet, Egyptian archers rain arrows from the walls. Perdiccas orders a night assault. The river betrays him. Currents sweep 2,000 men downstream, their screams swallowed by reeds. The army mutinies. Python and Seleucus stab the regent in his tent. 30 wounds, the purple cloak soaked crimson. The body is thrown to the crocodiles. The empire bleeds again. Year 3, the rise of the one-eyed Antigonus, now 60, marches from Phrygia with 70,000 men and a dream larger than Alexander's. He crushes Eumenes, the last loyalist, Greek secretary turned general, at Gabion in the Iranian salt desert. Elephants clash, sarissas splinter. The dust rises like a funeral shroud. Eumenes is betrayed by his own silver shields, veterans of Granicus, Issus, Hydaspes, who trade him for their baggage train. Antigonus weeps when he sees the old men, kisses their cheeks, then executes their prisoner. He proclaims himself king of Asia, mints coins with his own profile, one eye, one ambition. Year 4th to 10. The wars of the Diadochi, the world burns in fragments. In Greece, Cassander besieges Athens, starves the city, executes Demosthenes' nephew. The Acropolis falls. The owl of wisdom is blinded. In India, Chandragupta, now 35 master of the Mauryan Empire, buys Seleucus's eastern satrapies for 500 elephants and a treaty sealed in blood. The Indus becomes a border, not a grave. In Anatolia, Lysimachus fights Thracian tribes, loses half his army to frostbite, wins the other half with gold. In Babylon, Seleucus builds walls 60 feet high, plants gardens on rooftops, and waits. Antigonus grows old and bold. At Ipsus in 301 BC, he faces the coalition. Seleucus with 500 elephants, Lysimachus with Thracian peltasts, Cassander's phalanx on loan. The plain is dust and bronze. Antigonus, 81, rides an elephant, white hair streaming. His son Demetrius charges with the companions, breaks the left, pursues too far. Seleucus wheels the elephants, blocks the retreat. The phalanx is surrounded. Sarissas useless in the crush. Antigonus falls with 80 wounds, still shouting orders. Demetrius flees to the sea with 9,000 men and a fleet of dreams. The empire is now 4 kingdoms and 100 splintered satrapies. Year 11 to 20, the Epigoni. The successors die. One by one, poisoned, stabbed, or simply exhausted. Ptolemy dies in bed at 84, Alexandria gleaming around him, the library already swallowing scrolls from Persepolis. Seleucus is assassinated in Thrace by Ptolemy Karaunos, Lightning, son of the Thunderbolt, who crowns himself king for a day before the Galatians cut him down. Lysimachus falls at Corupedium, betrayed by his own son, his body left for dogs. Cassander's sons murder each other. Macedon becomes a prize for whoever has the sharpest dagger. The purple cloak is cut into rags. The diadem is melted into coins. The empire forgets its name, but one thread remains. The last fire at Pasargadae in 280 BC, a caravan of Persian exiles, nobles in threadbare robes, magi with singed beards, returns to the tomb of Cyrus. The steppe has reclaimed the royal road. Milestones lie toppled, grass growing through the cracks. The tomb stands alone, 6 steps, gabled roof. The inscription weathered but legible. I am Cyrus. Do not begrudge me this bit of earth. They bring cedar from Lebanon, frankincense from Saba, a single coal carried in a bronze bowl since the fall of Persepolis. The fire priest, Ardvahishth's great-grandson, voice cracked with age, climbs the steps at dawn. The plain is silent except for the wind. He kneels, feeds the coal, recites the Hashem Vohu. The flame catches, pale gold, steady. For one day, the fire burns as it did in 539 BC. The exiles prostrate themselves, foreheads to the dust. A child, 7 winters, eyes the color of glacier melt, watches from the shadows. She does not understand the words, but she feels the heat. When the sun sets, the magi extinguish the flame with sand. The coal is dead. The empire is dead, but the child pockets a splinter of cedar, warm against her palm. She will carry it west, to a village near the Euphrates, where she will plant it beside a qanat. Centuries later, a cedar will grow there, its roots drinking the same water that once fed the hanging gardens.
Travelers will rest in its shade, never knowing the fire it remembers. The night the empire forgot its name, in Alexandria, 250 BC, the library burns with curiosity. A Greek scholar, Callimachus, catalogues the spoils, Avestan hymns translated into coin, Babylonian star tables, Persian tax records on clay. He writes a marginal note in ink now faded. The Persians measured the world in parasangs and dreams. We measure it in scrolls. In Antioch, Seleucus' son Antiochus the Fine builds a temple to Zeus on the Persian model, columns of cedar, reliefs of bull-slaying Mithras. The priests wear white, but they sacrifice pigs. The fire is banked low. In Taxila, Chandragupta's grandson Ashoka carves edicts on pillars. All men are my children. The words are in Prakrit, Greek, Aramaic, the empire's last echo. In Persepolis, the terrace stands blackened, columns toppled, the Apadana staircase cracked by frost. Nomads camp among the ruins, their goats nibbling the weeds that grow between the reliefs. A child finds a gold derrick, bites it, pockets it. The archer king is worn smooth, and in the silence between the stones, the wind carries a whisper. We were the world once. We measured it in fire and tolerance. We built roads that reached the stars. We conquered not with chains but with water and law. And when we fell, the world forgot our name, but it kept our roads, our water, our law. The fire is out, the cedar is ash, but the child carries the splinter, and the Khanat still sings. The empire is gone, the memory remains, the night is long, but the stars are the same. The wind that once howled across the high plateau of Pasargadae now whistles through the steel ribs of a satellite dish on a rooftop in Tehran. It is 2025, and the same sun that rose over Cyrus's tomb now glints off solar panels in the Dashti Kavir, where Khanats, reborn as modern pipelines, carry water to fields of pistachio and saffron. The fire is gone, but the cedar splinter carried by a child 2 millennia ago has grown into a forest of memory, its roots drinking from the same underground rivers that once fed the hanging gardens. And in the silence between the call to prayer and the hum of drones, the empire speaks again. The echo begins in 1879. A team of British archaeologists, led by Hormuzd Rassam, digs in the ruins of Babylon. The sand is hot enough to blister skin. The air smells of camel dung and gunpowder from the nearby Ottoman garrison. On the third day, a workman's pick strikes clay. The cylinder emerges, palm-sized cuneiform pressed into its surface like the fingerprints of a god. Rassam brushes it clean, reads the first line by lamplight. I am Cyrus, king of the world, great king, legitimate king. The words are Akkadian, but the meaning is universal. He cables London. The British Museum opens a vault. The cylinder sleeps for a century, labeled Babylonian Curiosities. Then, in 1971, the Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, prepares for the 2500th anniversary of the Persian Empire. Persepolis is rebuilt in miniature. Cedar beams flown in from Lebanon, marble from Carrara, 60,000 guests in black tie and military braid. The cylinder is flown from London on a private jet wrapped in velvet, guarded by Savak agents with mirrored sunglasses. At the banquet, the Shah raises a glass of Chateau Lafite and quotes Cyrus, I freed the oppressed, restored the gods to their shrines. The cameras flash. The cylinder is photographed beside a replica of the Apadana staircase. The world sees tolerance in clay. The United Nations sees it too. In 1971, the General Assembly adopts the cylinder as a symbol of human rights. A replica is cast in bronze, placed in the lobby of the New York headquarters. The inscription is translated into 6 languages, then 100, then every tongue spoken under the sun. School children in Tokyo touch the cool metal and learn that freedom was born in Babylon, not Philadelphia. Activists in Soweto quote Cyrus against apartheid. Lawyers in The Hague cite the cylinder in cases of genocide. The empire, dead for 2,300 years, becomes a ghost in the machine of international law. But the echo is deeper than bronze. In California, a startup called Khanat AI maps ancient water systems with drones and machine learning. The algorithms trace the faint scars of underground tunnels across Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, lines invisible to the eye but clear in infrared. The data feeds desalination plants in Dubai, drip irrigation in Israel, flood control in Pakistan. The Qanats sing again, their song digitized, their water saving millions from thirst. The engineers name their flagship model Cyrus 1. No one remembers why. In Geneva, the World Health Organization launches a vaccination campaign in Yemen. The logo is a winged sun disk, borrowed from Persepolis reliefs, above the words, "Health for All." The trucks carry vaccines and coolers powered by solar panels, driving roads that follow the royal road's ancient alignment. Children in Sana'a receive shots and a sticker, a lion with a human face smiling. The empire's tolerance, once etched in clay, now prevents smallpox. In Silicon Valley, a social media platform called Darius launches with a promise. No censorship, no echo chambers, just open discourse. The icon is a gold coin with an archer king. Users in Tehran tweet in Farsi. Users in São Paulo reply in Portuguese. Algorithms translate in real time. The platform grows to 1 billion users, then crashes under its own weight. Servers in Ireland, moderators in Manila, lawsuits in Brussels. The founder, a Persian-American named Cyrus Darbandi, quotes the cylinder in his resignation letter. "I never commanded any to do what they did not wish." The empire's ghost smiles and moves on. In space, the Echo reaches orbit. The European Space Agency launches the Persepolis telescope, a constellation of satellites mapping exoplanets in infrared. The first image transmitted back is a world with oceans and clouds, 40 light-years away. The mission control in Darmstadt names it Ahura 1. The press release quotes the Gathas, "Through the best thought, we seek the illumination of the stars." The empire, once bound by parasangs, now measures in parsecs, but the deepest echo is in the soil. In 2025, a farmer in Fars province plows a field near the ruins of Persepolis. His tractor strikes stone. He digs by hand, finds a shard of cedar, blackened, fragrant, warm to the touch. He takes it home, places it on his windowsill. That night, his daughter, 7 winters, eyes the color of glacier melt, dreams of fire. She wakes, draws a picture, a flame inside a circle, a road stretching to the stars. Her teacher posts it online. It goes viral. Hashtags in Farsi, English, Mandarin. The fire remembers. Archaeologists return to Pasargadae. Ground-penetrating radar reveals a chamber beneath the tomb, unopened, sealed since 330 BC. They drill a fiber-optic camera through the stone. Inside, a bronze bowl, a coal still glowing faintly, a clay tablet in Old Persian. The inscription is one line. "The fire is not for us. It is for the child who comes after." The coal is carbon-dated, 2,554 years old, plus under 3 days. The chamber is sealed again. The coal is left to burn. In New York, the UN debates a new charter. The delegate from Iran, descendant of the Magi, beard trimmed short, places the replica cylinder on the table. "We do not need new words," she says. "We need old ones remembered." The vote is unanimous. That night, in a village near the Euphrates, the cedar splinter on the windowsill catches the moonlight. The girl sleeps dreaming of roads that reach the stars. The Qanat sings beneath the fields, its water carrying the memory of snow from Mount Sahand. The fire in Pasargadae burns low but steady, tended by no hand, seen by no eye, and in the silence between the call to prayer and the hum of drones. The empire speaks its final truth. "We conquered the world with water and law. We fell, and the world kept our gifts. The fire is out, the cedar is ash, but the child dreams, and the road goes on." The documentary fades to black. The screen shows a single line. "White on midnight. What forgotten empire conquers us still?" The credits roll over satellite imagery. The royal road traced in light from Sardis to Susa, Qanats glowing like veins beneath the desert, the Persepolis telescope orbiting a blue-green exoplanet. The final frame is the girl's drawing, flame, circle, road, animated into a constellation that rises over Tehran. The fire remembers. The child carries it forward. The empire is not forgotten. It is reborn. Every time we choose water over blood, law over chaos, memory over oblivion. And the story ends where it began. In the cradle of the rivers, where a king once freed the oppressed, and a coal still burns for the child who will come after.